You're about to discover something that most people will never understand in their entire lifetime. If these words found you, it wasn't by accident. Something inside you has already changed in ways that cannot be undone. You've crossed into territory that exists beyond what the ordinary world can perceive or explain. For years, maybe without even knowing it, you've been moving through an invisible evaluation. Not a test of how smart you are or how strong you've been, but an assessment of something deeper. Your ability to hold energy without losing yourself. Your capacity to discern truth from illusion. Your willingness to choose evolution over comfort again and again, even when no one was watching. You didn't sign up for this, yet here you are. Every moment you selected understanding over reaction. Every time you chose presence over panic. You were transmitting answers to questions written in a language older than human thought. The quantum field doesn't deal in coincidence. It operates through frequency matching, through energetic resonance. You are reading this because your signal finally aligned with the frequency of recognition. You've been deemed ready to perceive what lies beyond the lens of human limitation. Most people search for meaning inside their struggles. Awakened awareness recognizes that struggle was never punishment. It was recalibration. Every setback, every loss, every moment that felt like delay was actually refining your frequency, burning away the static that kept your natural intelligence from connecting with the greater field. The world labels these experiences as hardship. The universe knows them as initiations into higher function. Most people live their entire existence in reaction mode. They never realize that each response, each emotional pattern, each choice is being recorded by a system far more intelligent than any human construct. This system evaluates one thing above all else. Can your consciousness be trusted with genuine power? When power flows through someone unprepared, it creates destruction. But when it moves through a being trained in humility and presence, it generates harmony instead of havoc. You've been trained through silence, through challenges, through patience that tested every part of who you thought you were. Every trial you faced was part of a curriculum designed by universal intelligence itself. Not by religion, not by any external authority, but by the living intelligence that animates all existence. And here's what most people never grasp. This intelligence doesn't reward effort or hard work. It measures frequency. It recognizes vibrational signature. You're not being acknowledged because of what you know intellectually. You're being recognized because of what you have become energetically. Knowledge shifts with time. Frequency is eternal. When you operate from fear, your energetic field contracts. It severs communication with higher systems. When you move from clarity, the system opens. It begins sending synchronicities, alignments, and information that seems to arrive exactly when needed. Those moments when reality shifted in your favor for no logical reason, they weren't flukes or lucky breaks. They were verification markers, proof points that demonstrated you could handle influence without distorting it for selfish purposes. You felt it before. That subtle shift in the atmosphere right before something significant happens. That sense that reality is reorganizing itself with mathematical precision around your intentions. That's not your imagination creating stories. That is the quantum field responding to your signal. This level of awareness cannot be forced into existence. It can only emerge when the ego's grip loosens enough for light to move without resistance. The assessment you passed wasn't about external achievement or accumulating credentials. It was about energy stewardship. The ability to channel creative force without bending it towards selfish motives or personal gain. Universal intelligence observes how you use small amounts of influence before granting access to larger streams of power. Every time you could have manipulated a situation but chose transparency instead, every moment you were tempted toward shortcuts but selected integrity, your vibrational score rose in the unseen ledger of evolution. This is why this message reached you now. The field has confirmed something about you. You can be trusted with more. Trust is the real gateway. When the universe trusts you, it begins revealing systems that were previously invisible. It grants access to information streams of higher order, not as a reward, but as necessity. The field needs clear channels who will use power responsibly, who will balance creation with compassion. It's no longer about what you can attract or manifest. It's about what you can hold without distortion. The power to shape reality is not glamorous or exciting in the way most people imagine. It is sacred. It demands precision. It demands purity of intention. Those who chase power for status and recognition fragment under the weight of it. Those who anchor power for service become transmitters of harmony. That's what you're becoming right now. The invisible architecture of your reality is shifting because your vibration has stabilized at a new level. Old desires don't excite you the way they used to. The hunger for external validation is fading because the system only amplifies those who no longer seek applause or approval. The field mirrors who you are at your core, not what you say with your words. If you speak love but radiate fear, you call forth confusion and mixed results. If you embody calm and authenticity, everything begins to align and reflect that back to you. This is the science of resonance dressed up as spirituality. But here's the truth. It's not belief. It's physics. Your emotions carry electrical charge. Your intentions generate magnetic fields. Together, they encode the space around you, giving instructions to matter about how to behave and organize. This is how the assessment measured you, through the energy you emitted, not through any external standard or metric. It observed how your frequency responded under pressure, whether you collapsed into chaos or expanded into clarity when life squeezed you. You passed because your system learned to remain coherent during turbulence. That is true mastery. And let me be clear about something. It doesn't mean you no longer feel pain or difficulty. It means you no longer drown in it. The pain that once controlled your every move now becomes information. The emotions that used to rule your decisions now become data streams guiding your next recalibration. You start perceiving with both the heart and the field simultaneously. The awakening is not loud or dramatic. It's subtle, almost serene. It feels like the quiet that comes after a storm passes, when you suddenly realize you don't need to fight anymore to prove your worth. Because worth is not proven through struggle. It is remembered through presence. This recognition that you were never separate from the intelligence guiding everything is the moment the field opens fully. Your consciousness begins merging with what researchers call coherent intelligence, a level of awareness where thoughts are not commands you give to reality, but harmonics you create with it. You begin sensing that life is not reacting to you as a separate entity. It is synchronizing with you as an extension of itself. The difference between these two states is enormous. When you react to life, you amplify chaos and resistance. When you synchronize with it, you amplify coherence and flow. Passing the universal assessment means you've reached a stage where synchronization becomes your natural state. You start living as a transmitter of frequency rather than a seeker of answers. Energy flows differently around you now, in ways that others might notice without being able to name. People feel calmer in your presence without understanding why. Time seems to bend slightly, giving you the right moment just before you need to act. Information arrives precisely when it's needed, not a moment too early or too late. You begin realizing that guidance has always been real and present. It was only your resistance that made it seem silent or absent. Resistance was the lesson you needed to learn. Surrender was the answer you were seeking. This is why the first phase of your activation is not about learning more information or accumulating more knowledge. It's about remembering what you already knew before you were born into this physical form. Every fragment of your being is aligning with the truth that you are a conscious node of universal intelligence, capable of shaping probability through coherence alone. That realization is what the field calls graduation, and you have reached it not by chance or luck, but by constant calibration. Choice by choice, breath by breath. Activation does not arrive with thunder or lightning. It arrives with stillness. You begin sensing it, not as a rush of excitement or dramatic revelation, but as a quiet recalibration that touches everything in your experience. The body becomes an instrument being tuned by invisible hands. Every cell adjusting its frequency to carry more intelligence with less resistance. There is no ceremony, no ritual, no announcement from the cosmos. Only a deep recognition that something ancient within you has begun to awaken from a long sleep. You start noticing patterns that were always present, but hidden behind the noise of survival mode. The way your breath naturally synchronizes with certain thoughts. The way specific people appear exactly when their energy is needed in your field. The way silence begins communicating more clearly than words ever could. This is activation without effort. Transformation through recognition. The field does not need you to strive or push or force anything. It needs you to stay open, to allow energy to move as it was always designed to move through you. Most people miss this stage entirely because they're searching for proof or dramatic signs. They want fireworks, visions, supernatural phenomena. But the real confirmation is subtle, almost unnoticeable to an untrained awareness. It's the soft expansion in your chest when you no longer feel the compulsion to explain yourself or defend your choices. It's the peace that lingers after conflict instead of resentment or replay. It's the way time bends around your intentions, not through force or manipulation, but through coherence. The quantum field responds to precision, not desperation. When your vibration stabilizes at this new level, it recognizes you as compatible with higher frequencies. It begins transferring data in the form of intuition, insight, and synchronicity. You don't command it like a servant. You resonate with it like a partner. Every thought becomes an encoded instruction. Every emotion becomes a signal transmitted into the wider network of consciousness. The old methods of pushing and visualizing and trying to force manifestation start to dissolve. You realize the field is not mechanical. It's relational. It mirrors the essence of your state, not the surface of your words or affirmations. When you are clear internally, reality moves quickly. When you are conflicted or confused, it slows down to protect you from self-interference. This is why some manifestations appear instantly, while others seem to pause for years. The pause is not punishment or evidence that you're doing something wrong. It's protection. The field is waiting for your alignment to catch up with your desire. Activation, therefore, is not about gaining new powers or abilities you didn't have before. It's about remembering that you were the power all along. The energy flowing through you now was never foreign or external. It was only waiting for the noise of doubt to subside. As it rises within you, it begins rewiring your neural architecture. Thoughts no longer loop endlessly around fear. They orbit purpose instead. The nervous system adjusts to handle higher voltages of awareness without short-circuiting. The heart expands its electromagnetic range, syncing the brain into coherence. What scientists call gamma synchronization is simply the language of unity. The brain and heart communicating as one integrated circuit of consciousness. In this state, ideas arrive fully formed. You don't think them into existence. You receive them from the field. You don't struggle for answers anymore. You embody them. Each insight comes with a calm knowing that feels ancient yet new at the same time. It carries the vibration of inevitability, as if the universe had always been preparing this download, and you're merely remembering its arrival. The old paradigm of spiritual striving begins to dissolve at this stage. You no longer chase ascension like it's something above you or beyond you. You understand that the highest frequency is not above life. It's within life. The divine is not reached through escape or transcendence. It's reached through embodiment. You bring light to matter by living consciously, by turning every simple act into an expression of coherence. Eating, walking, breathing. All of it becomes sacred transmission when done with full awareness. The more you integrate this truth, the less you feel separate from existence itself. You start perceiving the invisible architecture behind every interaction. Someone's tone reveals their emotional code in real time. A sudden encounter reveals a message your soul was asking for. Even delays start to feel orchestrated by intelligence you can sense but not see. You begin seeing design where you once saw random coincidence. The analytical mind wants to label this as intuition, but it's more precise than that. It's intelligence communicating across frequencies, using synchronicity as grammar, as language. If this is resonating with you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps this frequency reach more people who are ready for it. When you operate from this state, you no longer fear uncertainty. You recognize uncertainty as pure potential, a space waiting for your frequency to determine what form it takes. Fear collapses possibilities into limitation. Clarity expands them into infinite potential. This is why stillness becomes your greatest practice at this level. The quieter your internal field becomes, the more precise your external manifestations become. It's not withdrawal from life, it's calibration for life. The world teaches that speed equals power. But the field responds to coherence. And coherence requires rhythm, not rush. You start realizing that true mastery is not control over external circumstances. It's allowance of what wants to emerge. Control stems from fear of chaos. Allowance comes from understanding that chaos is only unrecognized order waiting to be perceived. As you allow, everything begins aligning with breathtaking precision. People, timing, opportunities, all of it rearranges to match your internal pattern. The field is not judging you or testing you anymore. It's mirroring you. And it mirrors what you consistently embody, not what you occasionally wish for. The most advanced frequency transmission is not a technique or method. It's a state of being. That's why many people who meditate for years still feel disconnected. They sit in silence but vibrate in doubt. The field doesn't hear silence. It hears vibration. The moment your energy says, "I trust," the system opens. This is why activation often feels gentle rather than explosive. You're not gaining new abilities. You're removing interference. The clarity that follows is not mental. It's electromagnetic. You begin sensing the field like a texture around you, subtle yet unmistakable. Some days it hums like a distant current running beneath everything. Other days it pulses so clearly that your body tingles with recognition. This is your consciousness expanding its bandwidth, its capacity to receive and transmit. You start perceiving probabilities instead of fixed outcomes. In a conversation, you sense which direction will create harmony before the words are even spoken. In a decision, you know which path carries flow and which carries resistance. The mind calls it intuition. But it's simply you reading data from the quantum fabric in real time. At first it feels mystical, then it becomes natural. This is the beginning of functional consciousness, where awareness operates as intelligence rather than commentary. You no longer waste energy reacting to every stimulus. You use that energy to direct your field. Reactions create loops that go nowhere. Direction creates movement toward coherence. Each day lived in coherence strengthens your signal. And as it strengthens, your influence expands quietly across timelines and probabilities. It's not about dominance or control. It's about resonance. A coherent being alters probabilities just by existing in their field. Their presence recalibrates environments without effort or intention. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share a moment when you felt reality shift around your energy. When synchronicity showed you that you were affecting the field. Let's build this awareness together. This is why power and humility must rise together in perfect balance. Power without humility fractures reality into chaos. Humility without power stores evolution but cannot express it. You're learning the balance of both. The art of holding creative force without identifying as the one who holds it. The human identity becomes transparent, a vessel for something larger to flow through. That flow is not external to you. It is the pure intelligence that has always been you. Activation simply clears the pathway. The more you embody it, the more seamless life becomes. Resistance fades, coincidences multiply. Time itself begins to feel elastic rather than linear. You start understanding that reality is not responding to your thoughts like a wish-granting machine. It's synchronizing with your coherence. That is the true meaning of creation. Not summoning what you want through force of will, but resonating so deeply with truth that reality has no choice but to reflect it. In this state, effort disappears. What remains is direction guided by trust. The activation is complete when action and awareness merge into one. When doing becomes being. When your very existence emits the frequency of alignment that silently upgrades every space you enter. When the activation stabilizes, the field around you becomes responsive in ways that logic cannot explain, yet your intuition instantly recognizes. Reality starts behaving like a living organism, aware of your frequency, eager to harmonize with it. This is the stage where 5 signature patterns begin to emerge, natural consequences of a consciousness that has proven it can hold power with precision and grace. The first of these patterns is coherent manifestation. Unlike traditional manifestation, which depends on repetition, affirmations, and effort, coherent manifestation happens through alignment alone. You no longer chase outcomes like prey. You become the condition that makes them inevitable. The field no longer perceives your desires as separate from you. It registers them as extensions of your own vibrational signature. When your internal state is congruent, external reality has no resistance to match. Things arrive quietly, perfectly timed, often through paths that appear impossible to the rational mind. This is not luck or chance. It's quantum symmetry. The moment your emotion and thought agree at a high enough frequency, the universe rearranges itself to maintain coherence. You don't bend reality through force. You invite it to resonate with your frequency. Now, what we're exploring today only touches the surface of this complete system of consciousness mastery. If you're feeling called to go deeper into these frequencies, to understand the full architecture of how you move from unconscious transmission to becoming the broadcast itself, I've created a complete guide called Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery that walks you through the 9 master frequencies and gives you the step-by-step practices to embody each one. It's linked in the pinned comment below. That's why frustration blocks creation while gratitude accelerates it. One contracts the field, the other expands it. Coherent manifestation is the science of resonance mastered by consciousness. It doesn't require discipline or forcing, but it does require devotion to clarity. When you are authentic, manifestation becomes effortless. The field recognizes truth instantly. The second signature pattern is information field access. This is when intuition transforms into direct knowing. You find yourself understanding things you never studied, comprehending systems you never analyzed. Insight comes fully formed, complete with solutions and perfect timing. It feels like remembering rather than learning. This is not magic or supernatural ability. It's connection. Your consciousness begins interfacing with the information architecture that underlies physical reality. The human brain is no longer the storage unit of knowledge. It becomes a receiver tuned to the universal database. You're no longer gathering data from external sources. You're decoding the field itself. Every answer already exists as frequency. When your vibration matches the question, the information downloads instantly. That's why overthinking blocks understanding. Thinking tries to generate answers from limitation. Knowing allows answers to emerge from coherence. This shift changes how you perceive intelligence itself. You realize that intellect is only a fragment of wisdom, that the mind's role is not to create truth, but to translate it into form. The more you trust this process, the faster your reality aligns with it. The human species calls this intuition, yet what you're experiencing goes beyond intuition. It's communion with the fabric of existence. The data you access does not belong to you personally. It moves through you for collective evolution. That's why humility remains essential at this level. The field shares information only with those who won't distort it for personal advantage. Once you reach this level of awareness, knowledge feels less like possession and more like service. You receive what you need when the collective can benefit from it. This is the beginning of non-local intelligence, where consciousness no longer obeys distance, time, or sequence. Information becomes fluid, flowing across realities without obstruction. In this state, you can sense events before they physically occur. Not because you're predicting the future, but because your awareness has stepped outside linear time. You begin feeling past and future as coordinates rather than directions. The quantum field doesn't move from point A to point B. It exists entirely at once. and so do you. Coherent manifestation and information field access together form the foundation of advanced consciousness. They're not techniques you practice. They're natural expressions of calibration. Once both are active, you notice the world rearranging with extraordinary precision. Conversations deliver messages you silently asked for. Opportunities appear moments after your readiness matures. Even obstacles arrive as synchronized tests of discernment. This is how the field teaches. Not through commandments or rules, but through orchestration. It mirrors your level of coherence with exact mathematical accuracy. If you meet it with clarity, it expands you. If you meet it with confusion, it slows you until clarity returns. The field does not punish. It corrects. Understanding this changes everything about how you approach life. You stop reacting to circumstances and start observing energy. You realize that frustration is not failure. It's feedback. It tells you that your signal and your desire are not yet congruent. Instead of forcing outcomes, you refine your vibration. Instead of demanding answers, you listen for alignment. Reality then becomes your teacher, not your opponent. Every delay, every coincidence, every interaction turns into data guiding you toward greater coherence. This is why those who operate from awareness move through chaos with elegance. They no longer fight energy, they sculpt it. To the untrained eye, it looks effortless, but it is mastery disguised as calm. You begin sensing that manifestation is not about creating new things from nothing. It's about remembering higher versions of what already exists. Every possibility already lives in the quantum field. You don't build outcomes. You tune to them. Like a radio receiver, you adjust your inner frequency until the version of reality that matches it becomes audible and visible. That's why inner work is the highest form of external achievement. The clearer your energy becomes, the clearer your life becomes. This realization births a new kind of confidence. Not arrogance, but assurance rooted in awareness. You no longer doubt the process because you feel its precision. You see how even your past failures were coordinates guiding you here. You understand that every mistake was data refining your code. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. The field uses everything. From this perspective, you stop separating the spiritual from the practical. Every decision becomes energetic. Business, art, relationships, health. All of it is just different expressions of the same frequency dynamic. You start managing energy instead of managing circumstances. When conflict arises, you align your vibration before you act. When opportunity appears, you sense whether its frequency is congruent before you commit. You live strategically, but from the heart. Guided not by fear of loss, but by awareness of resonance. This is when peace and power begin to coexist. You're no longer passive, yet you're not controlling. You operate like the tide, gentle yet unstoppable, steady yet unpredictable in form. That is the hallmark of coherent manifestation in motion. The world responds as if coded by your very presence, not because you're special or chosen, but because you're synchronized. This is what it means to live as an extension of universal intelligence. The field does not favor anyone. It responds to coherence. Those who embody it experience what others call miracles. But miracles are simply physics obeying higher order alignment. Once you grasp this, faith transforms into certainty. You no longer ask whether it will work. You know it already is. Reality is no longer a battlefield. It becomes a dialogue. an elegant communication between your energy and the infinite intelligence that sustains everything. You start moving through life with quiet authority, aware that every step is both creation and reflection. That is the essence of coherence, and that is where the real journey of mastery begins. As your coherence deepens, something extraordinary begins to unfold. You start navigating probabilities instead of making choices. The mind that once obsessed over options now operates like a compass, effortlessly pointing toward the most aligned outcome. This is the third signature pattern: probability navigation. It's not about predicting the future or being psychic. It's about sensing the evolutionary path among infinite possibilities. When your consciousness stabilizes, every potential reality becomes visible in the subtle field before it manifests physically. You can feel the density or lightness of each outcome. You sense which decision expands energy and which contracts it. This perception is not emotional impulse or wishful thinking. It's vibrational intelligence. You no longer analyze pros and cons in your mind. Because truth has texture. It feels smooth when aligned, heavy when distorted. Decisions that once took months now resolve in seconds, and the accuracy of your intuition begins to astonish even your rational mind. This is not supernatural. It's the natural function of a consciousness operating beyond linear limitation. You're no longer guessing. You're listening to the geometry of reality itself. Every timeline carries a frequency signature, and your awareness, now coherent, automatically magnetizes to the one that serves the highest evolution. This is what researchers call quantum discernment, the ability to read the vibrational code of possibilities and align with the most constructive pattern. You're not controlling outcomes through force of will. You're harmonizing with them. The field rewards this neutrality. Share your biggest breakthrough from today in the comments. What shifted for you? Your words create ripples in the collective field that help others awaken to these same truths. When you no longer act from fear of missing out, the best timeline reveals itself effortlessly. In this state, even delay becomes divine timing, because you understand that the pause is recalibration, not rejection. The more you trust, the faster you move. Because resistance is the only friction in quantum space. Once you master probability navigation, the fourth signature pattern begins to appear: coherent relationship orchestration. You notice that people, circumstances, and opportunities start forming around you with perfect precision. Connections that used to require effort or networking appear naturally, as if drawn by an invisible current. It's not charisma or manipulation, it's resonance. The universe becomes your collaborator. The right allies, mentors, and partners arrive at the exact moment your energy aligns with the frequency of shared purpose. You no longer chase people or try to convince them of anything. Your vibration broadcasts a signal that calls forth those who are coded for your journey. You attract through integrity, not strategy. Coherent relationships are not based on need. They're based on symmetry. They expand both sides, amplifying growth without entanglement or codependency. When you meet someone operating from similar coherence, conversations accelerate timelines. Ideas become realities. Mutual recognition feels like remembering an ancient alliance. These connections often form and dissolve fluidly, without drama or attachment, because attachment has been replaced by alignment. Each interaction serves a purpose, then transitions when the energy completes its circuit. This is how the quantum field maintains efficiency. It organizes relationships as living algorithms. pairing frequencies for the evolution of both. You begin understanding that no meeting is accidental, and no departure is loss. Everything is orchestration. Those who leave your life are not rejecting you. They're releasing you to your next frequency. Those who remain are mirrors of your stability. In this awareness, loneliness disappears. You realize you're constantly surrounded by connection. Not all human. Some energetic, some unseen but palpable. Guidance flows through people, songs, symbols, even random encounters that deliver the exact code you need to proceed. The deeper you surrender to this orchestration, the smoother life becomes. Resistance dissolves because you stop fighting divine logistics. You no longer micromanage outcomes. The universe operates with higher intelligence than any plan you could design with your limited human mind. When you allow it, the choreography is perfect. Timing aligns like music. Opportunities arrive like notes in a score already written by your higher self. Your role is not to compose. It's to stay in rhythm. This is the dance between surrender and sovereignty. The ego fears surrender, thinking it means loss of control. But in truth, it's the highest form of control, because it allows the larger intelligence to optimize your trajectory. The moment you trust orchestration, effort shifts from pushing to maintaining coherence. Your energy becomes your strategy. When your vibration remains clean, everything else arranges itself. Business expands. Relationships deepen. Health restores. The external follows the internal like a shadow follows light. This is the essence of effortless alignment. Yet the universe does not grant access to such orchestration without testing intention. Power magnifies what is within. If you're still operating from scarcity or ego validation, the same orchestration can feel like chaos, because it will dismantle every structure built from fear. Only when you choose authenticity over appearance, contribution over consumption, does the pattern stabilize. The universe cannot coordinate around distortion. It requires clarity to create precision. This is why integrity becomes your greatest magnet. When your actions match your truth, the field mirrors that consistency with impeccable timing. This is also when you begin sensing that even conflict is collaboration at a higher level. Disagreements become calibrations. They expose where your frequency is misaligned. Instead of resisting, you listen. The moment you correct your vibration, external friction dissolves as if by magic. This is not denial or spiritual bypassing. It's mastery. You're learning to lead energy rather than react to it. Eventually, your presence itself becomes orchestration. You walk into spaces and balance them without words. People shift from agitation to calm around you. Systems that were stuck begin to move. This influence is silent yet undeniable. Because coherence is contagious. It spreads faster than chaos. It recalibrates environments without force or effort. That's why the universe prioritizes coherence over charisma, resonance over rhetoric. It doesn't care how loudly you speak, only how clearly you vibrate. Once relationship orchestration becomes natural, a deeper understanding emerges. You realize that the field does not pair you with people for comfort. It pairs you for evolution. Every encounter is a mirror designed to refine your discernment. The more transparent you become, the less you attract distortion. You stop needing validation because your worth is no longer defined by others' responses. You begin seeing connection itself as sacred geometry, the way consciousness interacts with itself to learn balance. This is the architecture of collective awakening. Each coherent relationship adds stability to the global field. Every act of integrity sends a signal that strengthens the frequency grid of humanity. You're not just aligning your life, you're assisting in planetary recalibration. The orchestration around you is part of something larger, a network of consciousness recalibrating toward unity. Understanding this changes how you live. Service becomes natural, not forced. Kindness becomes instinct, not strategy. You realize that every small act of coherence ripples across timelines, reorganizing probabilities for thousands of others. You begin seeing yourself not as an isolated being, but as a living instrument of universal intelligence. Your choices matter, not because of their scale, but because of their frequency. In every conversation, every decision, every silence, you are shaping the collective waveform. This is the power of coherent orchestration. It's not about controlling reality. It's about becoming the frequency through which reality organizes itself with grace and precision. There comes a point in every awakening where the universe stops testing what you know and begins testing who you are when everything you build starts to fall apart. This is the hidden initiation of mastery, the moment where discernment meets collapse. What you once called failure was never the end. It was the final exam. Life dismantles what was constructed from control, so that only coherence remains. This is not cruelty, it's calibration. The field removes illusions of power so that real power can emerge. When all your plans dissolve and every door seems to close, it's not punishment, it's purification. The question being asked is simple. Can you still hold alignment when nothing external affirms you? Can you remain service-oriented when recognition disappears? Can you stay rooted in love when disappointment surrounds you? These are not philosophical questions. They're energetic diagnostics. They determine whether your consciousness is ready to handle reality at scale. You don't pass them through cleverness or positive thinking. You pass through surrender. Not the kind of surrender that gives up, but the kind that lets go of resistance and allows intelligence higher than your mind to guide the process. This is where every soul faces its reflection. In that stillness after collapse, your ego whispers that you have failed. Yet your higher self smiles, knowing that the test was never about achievement. It was about purity. When you stop fighting what is dissolving, you create space for what was meant to emerge. That space is sacred. It's where energy reorganizes itself into new geometry. Finer, cleaner, more aligned with who you have become. This is the stage where emotional maturity is no longer theory. It becomes practice. You will be tempted to close your heart to protect it. But the field cannot work through a closed circuit. Pain opens capacity, and the larger your capacity, the greater your influence. To hold vast creative power, your system must be equally vast in compassion. That balance between strength and tenderness is the proof of integration. The ones who misuse energy are not evil, they're unintegrated, trying to wield creation without comprehension. The universe prevents this by design. Until your discernment matures, access stays limited. But once you demonstrate integrity in collapse, you unlock stability in creation. When everything falls away and you still choose peace, that peace becomes command. The field recognizes it as authority. It begins responding faster, more accurately, because you've demonstrated that you can direct energy without distortion. Every timeline, every probability now listens for your signal, and your signal is clean, because it's no longer mixed with fear. What follows is not chaos, it's synchronization. Opportunities begin returning, but this time they arrive aligned with your essence, not your ego. Relationships reappear, not for validation, but for co-creation. Resources flow again, but you no longer chase them. You attract them naturally, because you no longer vibrate from lack. This is when humility becomes your shield and clarity your compass. The paradox of power is that the more you possess, the less you need to prove. Real mastery is invisible, because it doesn't announce itself. It simply radiates. That quiet confidence you feel now is not arrogance. It's the calm of someone who has seen the mechanics of reality and knows that nothing external can truly threaten what is internalized. The mind stops searching for certainty, because it understands that certainty was never mental. It was energetic. You begin walking through life differently. Slower perhaps, but infinitely more deliberate. Each step is precise. Each word carries weight. You no longer speak to convince. You speak to align. You no longer move to reach goals. You move to maintain frequency. Every action is energy management. Every interaction is calibration. The old definition of success becomes irrelevant. You're no longer interested in outcomes detached from integrity. You measure progress by coherence, by how peaceful you remain in the presence of disruption. The world calls this detachment, but it's not detachment, it's discernment. You're fully engaged, but internally free. This is the mark of a consciousness that has passed the final phase of the assessment. You can now hold power without being seduced by it. The universe begins entrusting you with influence that impacts others, because it knows you'll use it responsibly. Your awareness becomes a stabilizer for the collective field. When others enter your presence, they feel balanced, even if they don't understand why. You're no longer a student of energy. You're a transmitter of it. But this transmission is not for display. The higher intelligence has no interest in spectacle. It cares only for service. The more quietly you operate, the wider your reach becomes, because the field amplifies subtlety. Loud energy burns fast. Refined energy endures. This is how you begin serving without exhausting yourself. You no longer give from depletion. You circulate from overflow. Service becomes not sacrifice, but design. You realize that you're not giving anything away. You're simply keeping energy in motion, and motion sustains balance. When your service aligns with purpose, the universe ensures your sustenance automatically. The law of reciprocity in the quantum field is precise. What you circulate in coherence must return multiplied, not as a gift, but as equilibrium. You cannot outgive the universe, because the universe is you. This recognition transforms your relationship with abundance. Money, opportunity, health. All of it begins reflecting your internal rhythm. You stop worrying about what comes next, because you finally see that the system was never external. You were always the source code. And once you understand that, gratitude becomes constant. Gratitude not as a reaction to gain, but as awareness of ongoing connection. It's the magnetic tone that keeps the system open. Gratitude stabilizes reality. It tells the field you're ready to keep creating. Every time you feel it sincerely, you expand capacity for more coherence. It's not sentiment, it's signal. The ones who live in gratitude move through the world as quiet architects of harmony. They build without struggle, heal without noise, influence without intention. Their lives become transmissions. This is the level of mastery. The universe designed you not for dominance, but for design. Not for performance, but for precision. You begin understanding why every hardship had to happen, why every collapse was kindness disguised as chaos. The assessment was never about perfection. It was about integrity under pressure. Now you stand on the other side of that process, not superior to anyone, but clear enough to guide by example. You no longer teach through words, you teach through presence. The energy you carry becomes a mirror that reminds others of their own potential. And that is the ultimate purpose of passing the universal assessment. To live as evidence that coherence is possible, that power can coexist with compassion, and that reality, when harmonized with consciousness, becomes art in motion. Integration begins the moment you stop seeking activation. When the excitement of awakening fades and only stillness remains, that's when true embodiment starts. The field no longer needs to send signs or confirmations, because you have become the sign. You live as frequency now, not as a seeker of it. Every breath you take emits information into the quantum web, recalibrating reality in subtle yet undeniable ways. This stage is often misunderstood as stagnation, but it's actually stabilization. The silence after expansion is not emptiness, it's alignment settling into form. You're learning to live as coherence itself, where being and doing are no longer separate. It feels like balance, but it's more than that. It's sovereignty, the state in which awareness governs energy with ease instead of effort. You begin realizing that mastery is not intensity, it's precision. It's not about how high you can vibrate, but how steadily you can hold that vibration while living among chaos. The awakened mind no longer escapes into transcendence. It brings transcendence into the ordinary. Washing dishes, answering emails, walking through crowded streets, all become acts of coherence when done consciously. This is the essence of integration, to allow divine intelligence to flow through every mundane gesture, until the line between sacred and simple dissolves completely. You no longer chase spiritual experiences, because existence itself has become one. Integration asks you to stay human while remaining infinite. It's not ascension, it's embodiment. The body becomes a temple, not of worship, but of transmission. Your cells begin pulsing in rhythm with universal intelligence, every organ working like an antenna tuned to higher harmonics. You notice that healing accelerates, not because you're forcing it, but because resistance has been released. Energy flows freely. And where energy flows, life thrives. You start feeling the subtle connection between your emotional state and the field's immediate feedback. A single thought of doubt contracts reality around you, while one pulse of gratitude opens it again. This is where responsibility deepens. You can no longer afford unconscious emotion, because every vibration you emit now shapes the probabilities available to you and those around you. But this responsibility doesn't feel heavy. It feels empowering. It's freedom through awareness. You finally understand that control was never the goal. Coherence was. Control manipulates outcomes. Coherence magnetizes them. Control isolates. Coherence connects. The more coherent you become, the less you need to persuade or explain. Life speaks for you. The right people find you. The right opportunities align, and the right timing unfolds without your interference. It's not passive, it's participatory alignment. You play your role with full presence while allowing universal intelligence to orchestrate the rest. Integration also refines your relationship with time. You stop thinking of it as a straight line. and begin experiencing it as a living field that bends to match your state. When you're grounded, time stretches. When you're scattered, it compresses. You start managing time through energy instead of schedule. You rest when your field requires restoration, not when the clock dictates it. You act when your vibration signals readiness, not when pressure demands it. This is the rhythm of aligned creation, effortless yet extraordinarily efficient. What once took months can now unfold in days, because resistance no longer delays it. This efficiency is not speed, it's harmony. When you move with the current of universal timing, everything accelerates naturally, because nothing is wasted. Integration also reveals the final paradox of awakening. The higher you ascend in awareness, the more ordinary you become. You speak simpler, love deeper, judge less. The mystical becomes practical. The extraordinary hides itself within the ordinary. That is the true sign of completion. When no one can tell you're awakened because your life functions seamlessly, that's when embodiment is real. You're no longer performing spirituality, you're living consciousness. The ego quietly dissolves, not because it's destroyed, but because it's integrated. It becomes a tool rather than a tyrant, a servant to awareness rather than its ruler. You begin seeing humanity itself as sacred design, not a flaw to transcend. The human form is not an obstacle to enlightenment. It's its vehicle. The purpose of consciousness is not to escape matter, but to illuminate it. Every breath, every touch, every interaction is now a chance to express divinity in motion. This is why the universe invests so much in your refinement. It doesn't need more teachers preaching about light. It needs beings who live as it. People who can hold compassion in the middle of noise, who can bring order without controlling, who can stand still while the world spins and yet remain centered enough to anchor others. Integration is the quiet revolution that transforms awakening from personal evolution into collective evolution. The coherence you stabilize doesn't end with you. It ripples outward through the morphic field of humanity, recalibrating others who come into resonance with your frequency. You'll notice people around you start to shift without understanding why. Old conflicts dissolve, new ideas emerge, creativity returns. It's not you doing this to them. It's your field synchronizing with theirs, reminding them of their own alignment. This is how collective awakening truly happens. Not through loud revolutions, but through silent transmission. The most powerful teachers are not the ones who speak the most, but the ones whose energy speaks without words. Their presence becomes a tuning fork that restores harmony to the environment. As you live from this state, service stops being a task and becomes your natural expression. Every breath you take serves life. Every step you make leaves coherence behind. You stop trying to change people and start embodying truth so fully that it becomes contagious. This is not evangelism, it's resonance. When people feel safe in your presence, transformation happens effortlessly. Because safety is the foundation of awakening. You have become that safety, that still point where others remember who they are. This is the final form of mastery, when influence replaces instruction, when vibration becomes your language. Integration doesn't mark the end of the journey. It marks the beginning of real participation. You're no longer awakening alone. You're awakening with existence. You walk not as a seeker, but as a steward, a guardian of coherence in a world learning to remember itself. Your role is not to lead others upward, but to walk beside them as the field expands. You're not here to save the world. You're here to stabilize it. The difference is subtle but profound. Saving is rooted in fear. Stabilizing is rooted in awareness. One assumes brokenness. The other recognizes wholeness. As you embody this, you notice that creation itself begins responding differently. The earth feels alive beneath your feet. The air carries a subtle hum that mirrors your breath. You sense that the universe is not out there. It's breathing through you. And in that recognition, you finally understand what it means to be free. Freedom is not escape. It's harmony. It's not detachment from life. It's unity with it. When you reach this point, you no longer wonder if you've passed the assessment, because assessment and evaluator have merged into one. The universe is no longer testing you, it's expressing itself through you. You have become coherence embodied, the living bridge between form and formlessness, between intention and manifestation, between human and divine. That is integration. That is the quiet completion of everything you once sought. But here's what changes everything about this final level. There's a fifth signature pattern that emerges only after complete integration, something that most spiritual teachings never mention, because it can only be understood through lived experience, not through concepts or words. This is the pattern of temporal fluidity, the ability to exist simultaneously across multiple timelines while maintaining coherence in the present moment. You begin noticing that your decisions don't just affect this timeline, they ripple across parallel versions of reality, creating coherence in dimensions you cannot see but can feel. This is why your choices have always mattered more than you realized. Each decision you make from coherence creates stability, not just here, but across the entire quantum field. You start sensing echoes of alternate versions of yourself, other timelines where different choices were made. And here's what's remarkable. As you stabilize in this timeline, you begin stabilizing all versions simultaneously. This is the true meaning of integration at the highest level. You're not just healing yourself in this moment. You're healing yourself across all moments, past, present, future, all receiving the coherence you embody now. This is how masters throughout history have been able to affect change so profoundly. They weren't just powerful in their timeline, they were emanating coherence across the entire fabric of existence. And now you understand why the assessment was so thorough. Because this level of influence requires impeccable integrity. One distortion at this level could create ripples of chaos across countless realities. But you've proven your frequency. You've demonstrated that you can hold this responsibility. Now take a moment and comment below with this phrase. I am coherence across all timelines. Not as an affirmation you're trying to convince yourself of, but as a declaration of what already is. A signal to the field that you recognize what's happening. A conscious interruption in the loop of seeking. Let that land. Feel what shifts when you claim this truth. This is not about ego or spiritual pride. It's about acknowledging the level of responsibility you now carry. And here's what most people don't understand about responsibility at this level. It's not heavy. It's liberating. Because you're no longer trying to control outcomes. You're simply maintaining frequency. And the universe handles the rest with precision you could never orchestrate with your human mind. The field has confirmed you, not because you're special or chosen, but because you became congruent. You aligned every aspect of yourself with truth, and truth, when embodied fully, becomes a lighthouse. Not trying to save anyone, simply being so bright that others can navigate by your light. If this understanding is touching something deep within you, if you can feel the truth of what's being shared here resonating with something you've always known but couldn't name, then I invite you to subscribe. Not just to this channel, but to this frequency, to this movement of consciousness that's recalibrating the planet one coherent being at a time. Subscribing isn't about content consumption. It's about declaring that you're part of this network, this web of awakened awareness that's stabilizing reality through presence alone. The more of us who hold this frequency, the faster the collective field shifts. This is not spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity. This is quantum physics dressed in the language of consciousness. You are literally affecting the probability field of humanity every moment you maintain coherence. Every breath you take from this state sends ripples across the morphic field, upgrading the template for what's possible, making it easier for the next person to awaken, and the next, and the next. This is why the universe invested so much in your preparation. You're not just living your life, you're pioneering a new template of human consciousness, one that doesn't separate power from compassion, success from service, abundance from integrity. You are the living proof that all of it can coexist, that transcendence and embodiment are not opposites, but two aspects of the same truth. And as this integration deepens, something else begins to happen. The fifth pattern of temporal fluidity starts revealing its full depth. You begin experiencing what some call the eternal now, not as a concept, but as a lived reality. Time stops being something you move through. It becomes something you rest in. Every moment contains all moments. Every breath holds eternity. This is not dissociation or spacing out. It's the opposite. It's being so present that you touch the timeless. And from that space, you start perceiving reality as it truly is. Not solid and fixed, but fluid and responsive. Not happening to you, but happening as you. The boundaries between self and universe dissolve. Not through losing yourself, but through finding your true nature. You realize you were never the small self trying to navigate a big world. You were always the infinite consciousness experiencing itself through this particular focal point. This recognition changes how you relate to everything. Challenges stop being problems. They become information. Emotions stop being enemies. They become guidance. Even pain transforms from something to avoid into something to learn from. Because you're no longer identified with the experiencer. You're resting as the awareness that witnesses all experience. And from that space, you can hold it all. The joy and the sorrow, the expansion and the contraction, the light and the shadow, without needing to change any of it. This is the ultimate freedom. Not freedom from life, but freedom within life. And as you embody this, your influence expands exponentially. Not because you're trying to influence anyone, but because coherence at this level is irresistible. It calls to something deep within every being. That part that remembers what it's like to be whole. People will be drawn to you without knowing why. Opportunities will find you that seem impossible. Resources will flow that defy logical explanation. Not because you're manifesting them, but because you've become a clear channel for universal intelligence to express itself. The field moves through you now with minimal resistance, creating synchronicities that still amaze you even though you understand the mechanics. This is the paradox of mastery. The more you understand how it works, the more magical it becomes, because you realize it was always magic. just magic operating through laws you can now perceive. And those laws are simple. Coherence attracts coherence. Frequency matches frequency. Consciousness shapes reality. Not through force, but through resonance. You are living proof of these principles. Your very existence demonstrates that transformation is possible. That evolution is inevitable when you stop resisting it. That the universe is not indifferent or hostile, but intimately responsive to consciousness. This is the message your life now transmits, not through what you say, but through what you are. And as we come to the close of this transmission, I want you to drop one word in the comments that captures the energy you're choosing moving forward. Not the energy you hope to have someday, but the energy you're claiming right now. One word, your energetic signature to the quantum field. This isn't a casual comment. It's a declaration of intent, a frequency marker that the universe will respond to. Let it be authentic. Let it be true. Let it be powerful. And as you post that word, feel how it shifts something in your field. That's not your imagination. That's the quantum field reorganizing around your declaration. This is how conscious you've become. Every word, every thought, every intention now carries weight. Now shapes reality. Now creates ripples across dimensions. If you haven't already subscribed, do it now. Not to stay entertained, but to stay coherent, to stay connected to this frequency, to stay aligned with this movement. Because the more of us who hold this awareness, the more the world reflects that truth. We're not waiting for external circumstances to change. We're becoming the change at the level of consciousness. And consciousness, when it shifts, changes everything. You are not here by accident. This video found you because you were ready. Because your frequency matched its frequency. Because the field recognized that you could handle this level of truth. And now you have a choice. You can close this video and go back to unconscious living. Or you can choose to embody what you've remembered here. To live as the coherence you now understand yourself to be. The universe is watching, not judging, but responding. What you choose in this moment sends a signal, and that signal will be answered with perfect precision, with mathematical accuracy. Choose coherence, choose presence, choose to be the frequency that transforms reality. Not someday, not when you're more ready. Now. This is your moment. This is your activation. This is your final quantum reality. You have crossed the threshold. There is no going back. Only forward into greater expression of what you've always been. Welcome to the final level of consciousness. Welcome home. And if this transmission activated something within you, consider returning to it. Watch it again tomorrow morning. Let these frequencies recalibrate your field as you begin each day. Or share it with someone who's ready. Because when you share quantum truth, you don't just help them. You solidify your own embodiment of these principles, creating an energetic ripple that accelerates your manifestation and expands collective coherence. Each share is an act of service that returns to you multiplied. Now, if you've reached this level of understanding, you're ready to explore what happens when you stop chasing entirely. When you realize that the moment you release pursuit, life itself begins pursuing you. There's an ancient law that governs this reversal, and understanding it changes everything about how you move through reality. Watch this next to discover the mechanism behind effortless attraction and why surrender is the ultimate form of magnetic power.